There is a lot of shit going on, including some not so great stuff. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but I do want to mention this is the first pay-per-view since we lost Owen Hart. Of course, he passed away in May of '99 over the edge. At the very end of the month is when Owen had his funeral in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. What do you remember about Owen's funeral?
Well, obviously it was a horrible tragedy and an extremely sad time to lose someone so young and someone as vibrant and as great of a human being as Owen Hart was. I think the entire company went because Owen was just that loved and he was that well respected, and it was a dark time. It was a dark, very difficult thing to do. And I remember making the pilgrimage out to Calgary to pay the respects. You know, you're paying your respects to a dear friend, but also, you know, a family that has been a part of this business that I've known for many years as well. And it just was, you had to look inside, and you have to put your head down and you have to barrel through it. And it's not easy, not fun, nothing good, you know, out of it. But you do the right thing and you go and you pay your respects and you show your love and you show your support and respect to the family and to the human being that contributed so much throughout his entire life. And to this day is sorely missed.
One of the things that comes out of this funeral is the first face-to-face meeting with Bret Hart and Vince McMahon post Montreal. Do you remember that being discussed, or is it just, does it happen?
No, it happened. I wasn't a part of it. And I think that it was much more made out of it, you know, from everyone else. It's two human beings. It's two human beings that may have had a disagreement, a professional disagreement, but for them to get together, they're getting together over the loss of a loved one, and they're getting together over a very tragic situation to discuss and to forget about all this other bullshit and share condolences. That's what that was. And I think people lose sight of that is, oh my God, you know, Bret and Vince are going to meet together. What's going to happen? And there was that speculation, people going, oh, you know, is Bret going to beat him up? No, that wasn't even, that's just silly, over speculating, fantasy talk. It was human beings getting together to express their condolences. And it happened to be, unfortunately, sometimes the first time that you have those opportunities are in unfortunate situations.
Let's talk a little bit about the coverage of the passing. Larry King is a subject of a lot of discussion in this era. Martha was on there, and of course she has taken issue with the WWE. What's the relationship like with Larry King after, you know, some pretty famous moments with him in the 80s? It feels like maybe there was a falling out or something, and now it's back, and it's not necessarily for a good reason. What can you tell us about Larry King?
I don't know that there was never any real working relationship with Larry King. We'd been on Larry King shows for various topics, and Larry King, no different than the Geraldos of the world and the CNNs of the world that like to sensationalize whatever story is out there for news. We're in a 24-hour news cycle where they had to create programming. So they created controversy, and they wanted to create whatever other dynamic that they possibly could. And we made ourselves available to the various media outlets as best that we could. And it wasn't, wasn't comfortable by any stretch of the imagination. But Larry, I don't know that Larry was ever a friend of the WWE, where he would go, "Hey guys, come on, we're going to throw you some softballs and make this all good." That's not what those people do. And it certainly isn't what the folks at CNN were looking to do. And they also being associated with Turner Sports, they're going to take that other side. But that's what the media does. And they're going to spin it so that they have a story, and as much sensationalism as they can, they're going to throw it out there.
What do you remember about Martha's claim that she asked Vince McMahon not to show footage from the funeral? He comes out afterwards and says that he spoke to her no less than 5 times and she never mentioned not showing it. But I guess somewhere along the way, she says she did, have explicit instructions for Carl DeMarco, who was the president of, the Canadian side of the company.
I don't really know. I was never privy to any of the meetings that Martha ever had with Vince, and, heard that after the fact, but we had cameras there. The media, everyone had cameras there. There was footage of the funeral, news footage all over the world, because Owen Hart was a global figure that was loved all over the world. So that's hard to speak to, having never heard that from her, nor had I ever heard it from anyone else. And Owen was a major figure on our television show. He was a big part of our TV show. He was a part of the WWE family. So I think that, knowing Vince the way that, I know Vince, I think that he would have respected those wishes had they been made directly to him emphatically. But who's to know? I can't say, yes, I heard her say it, or no, I didn't hear her say it, because I wasn't privy to any of those conversations.
Vince writes a letter to the Calgary Sun, sort of defending himself, saying that, hey, I talked to her multiple times. She didn't say anything. And she tried to get our flowers removed, from the, facility. And the WWF has covered a ton of expenses here that she may not even know about. Limousines, transportation of the body, flowers, service folders, video screens, public address systems, buses, signage for buses, armbands, catering, housekeeping, lawn cleanup, men's and ladies' clothing, sunglasses, hairdressing, obituaries, a Canadian flag. The WWF also paid $152,200 for transportation expenses for WWF talent and personnel. So he's defending himself in the paper. This happens, in early June. So, a week later, this is already getting ugly and public.
Well, and not, I hate to say it, but not by us. It's at some point, when you get hit so many times, at some point you got to put your hands up and defend yourself a little bit. And I think that Vince was just trying to say, here's what we have done. And we didn't make any of that public at first. You don't go in and say, okay, hey, here's this tragedy. This is what we're going to do. We're going to do this, that. You just do it. And that's what he did. And I don't think that Vince ever looked at it as, I'm going to go do this, so everybody come and thank me and tell me how great I am. But I also don't think he thought that someone was going to come in and say, oh, what a horrible person. So at some point, man, you gotta defend yourself. You gotta say, okay, well, maybe what you're hearing is only one side. And I understand a skewed side. I couldn't imagine losing a loved one the way that they did. And you just have to weigh it.
Meltzer would write, as mentioned before, the contrast between this funeral, where every wrestler and key office personnel were strongly encouraged to attend, and the Brian Pillman funeral, which wasn't a media event and exactly 0 people working for the WWF attended, is just too amazing. Talk to me about the differences, from a company perspective.
Well, first of all, there's a huge difference. Owen Hart had spent his entire career at WWE, and Brian had not. Brian had, not been with WWE for a long, long time. I also think that Brian's funeral was scheduled right around a television taping and what have you. You're talking apples and pomegranates, unfortunately, and it wasn't something that, Brian was with us. Yes, he was. And I missed Brian's funeral because of, you had to work. Some people had to work. Some people had to go on and move on. Owens was scheduled at a time where people could make it. It was also over, I believe, a holiday weekend or something like that. But it was scheduled at a time where everyone was available to go. That's it more than anything. It wasn't, we like Owen better than Brian. That's ludicrous. That's somebody just stirring shit and trying to make something out of nothing.